Hey everyone, Eric here. In this video, we're checking out the Season of the Witch version 2 from Swamp Witch Pedals. Just like version 1 of the Season of the Witch, version 2 is a modulated delay pedal based around the PT2399. On V1, it had a lot of control. It gave you control over most everything. So on V2, Swamp Witch Pedals has given you, just as much sonic capabilities, but maybe a little bit less intimidating controls and just easier to dial in quicker. I've got my Woodwright Warlord tuned to C standard plugged into the Season of the Witch version 2. That's going out to the Boss Katana. It's set kind of dirty. Up here on the top left is going to be the blend pot. So this is your wet-dry mix. So if it's all the way down at the bottom, you get a very subtle sound of delay. And as we start to turn the blend up, we're gonna get a louder and louder delay in comparison with our dry signal. Next, we have the delay knob. This is going to be our delay speed, or how quick or slow our delay is repeating. So at the minimum, we're going to get very, very short delay times. So it kind of sounds like a room reverb more than a delay. Now at the top range of the delay control, we start to get into very long repeat times, which ultimately degrade the signal and kind of cause like a more lo-fi feel to the delay. Moving on, we have the feedback control, and this is going to control how many repeats on the delay we have. All the way down, we're only going to get one repeat. And as we start to turn the feedback control up, we're gonna get more and more repeats. As it comes delivered from Swamp Witch, the Season of the Witch will self-oscillate, but there's actually a trimmer inside that you can set the maximum feedback, and what I've done is I've set it just on the verge of self-oscillation. So even at maximum, I'm not quite getting self-oscillation, but if you like self-oscillation, you can turn that control up on the inside and get it without any problem. Now we come to the Modulation LFO control part of the Season of the Witch version 2. We have a few different controls. We have a rate control, which is going to control the speed of our modulation. We have a waveform control, which is going to control exactly how the modulation happens, the waveform of it. And then we have two depth controls. In order to demonstrate the rate and waveform control, I'm going to go ahead and turn the depth on the delay up. The rate, of course, is how fast that modulation is going. At minimum, we have very slow modulation. And then if we turn it up, we get faster and faster. Now below that is the waveform control, and we can kind of audibly hear what it's doing visually. Right now we're on sine wave, so it's like a smooth transition between the modulation. If we turn it up one, we're on square wave, so this modulation is going to go from bottom to top very quickly. We have a few other ones like this ramp down. So what it's going to do is it's going to start at the top and then gradually ramp down and then immediately jump back up to the top and gradually ramp down. And then we have other things like the random setting. Moving on, we have the depth knobs, and each depth controls the parameter directly above it. So over here, this depth controls the delay time, and then over here, this depth controls the feedback. At minimum, on the delay depth, we don't have any modulation at all. As we start to increase the depth, we start to introduce modulation to the delay control. Essentially what the LFO is doing is it's taking this control and moving it like that in different ways. And so we can control the upper and lower end of the spectrum of what it travels when controlled by the LFO with the depth control. So if we turn the depth control all the way up, it's going to have the widest sweep. So you can hear it's going to all the way up to super fast to as long of a delay time as it can. So if we turn it down to midway, you can also manipulate where the LFO takes hold because it's going to center around wherever the knob position is. So for example, if we want more faster delay times, we can set the delay rate to a lower setting. I've got it at like 40% here, and we can keep the depth right here and just see how that sounds. And the second depth control does the same sort of thing. We're controlling the feedback knob with the LFO, depending on which way we start to move the depth control from noon. At noon, we're not getting any modulation at all, so it's a normal delay sound. So it's going to be modulating the tail of the delay, so how many repeats we have. Now, if we start to increase or decrease the depth, we get more modulation. And just like on the delay control, if we want a wider sweep of the feedback control, we can just start turning the depth farther away from noon. And if we start at noon again and go the opposite way, we're still introducing modulation to the feedback, but what we're doing is we're actually putting it out of phase with the original signal of the LFO. When the LFO is going up, we're going down. So the control largely does the same thing on its own, but when used in conjunction with the delay control, it starts to get different textures depending on which side of noon on the feedback control you set it. You can use the tap control to tap in the tempo of the LFO, not the delay. So you can control how fast the modulation goes with the tap foot switch. But also you can press and hold to momentarily turn that feedback control all the way up. Now let's talk about expression control via the expression jack up here at the top of the pedal. We can control both of these depths, either one at a time or both at the same time. All we need to do is place the depth where we want. So if we take the depth on the delay, put it up just a little bit, and then the feedback all the way up, that's signaling that we want to control both the depth of the delay and the feedback. So now if we plug in an expression pedal, we get control over both of those parameters. You can see that the LFO lights stop, and now if we use the expression control, it's lighting them up dimmer and brighter, and that lets us know visually exactly what we're controlling. Now, while we have control over these parameters with the expression, the depth control is going to set your maximum amount of depth. So if we turn it all the way up, you can see now with the delay depth, we have it full all the way up. And then with the feedback depth, we have it just a tiny bit up. actually have a secret setting on the expression control where we can control one parameter with the expression control and the other parameter can be controlled by the LFO. In order to do that, we need to set one of the depths to minimum, to 0. So on the delay depth, that would be actually 0, all the way counterclockwise. And the feedback depth would be set at noon, because that's 0. So I'm gonna use the internal LFO to control the delay depth. So I set that to 0. I've got the depth of the feedback up a little bit, so that's signaling that I wanna control it with my expression pedal. So now when I plug in my expression pedal, now I have control over the feedback with my expression pedal. And then our delay is now controlled with the internal LFO. So if we turn up the depth, so what I have set up here that I'm really digging is the delay is centered around like midpoint on the actual delay speed. The depth is at 50%, and the rate of the LFO is pretty slow. So that's giving us more of like a chorus sound. Now we can use the expression control to introduce some feedback throughout our playing. I hope you enjoyed this look at the Season of the Witch 2 from Swamp Witch Pedals. If you want to learn more about the Season of the Witch 2 or purchase it, I'm going to leave a link to their website in the description below. I've got other links down there that take you over to Reverb and Sweetwater. If you want to help support the channel, those are affiliate links. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're doing well out there. I hope you're staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're taking care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.